Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back today with some cards for the December 2019 Pink and Main box. This is called the Winter Wonderland, and I already did a unboxing, so if you just want to head back to my channel and check that out, you can. But let's get started with the cards we're making. I'm making 5 cards with this one kit today. I've grabbed out some of the pattern paper from the kit and I've put that inside of my Misti, and then I pulled out that beautiful snowflake stamp that came in the kit, and this one covers the entire front of an A2 size card. So I've put that in there and I'm inking this up with my VersaMark ink because I plan to do some heat embossing, and then I close the door of my Misti and I stamp that down. And then I'm going to grab out my Alabaster embossing powder. This is just a fine detail white embossing powder, and then I will cover the snowflakes with that white detail embossing powder. Once that is completely covered with the embossing powder, I'll put everything away, and then I'm going to grab out my heat tool and I'm going to try and make sure that that is heated up pretty good so that it'll have less warping, but then I'm just going to heat set that embossing powder till that is smooth and melted. And I love the way that looks. It is so pretty, especially on that blue pattern paper from the kit. And we're going to trim this down. Like I said, this is going to almost cover completely the front of an A2 size card. There will be a little bit of a border, but that's the nice thing about it. I plan to actually make a shaker card with this one. So in order to do so, once it's all trimmed down, I'm going to cut out the inside. So in order to do that, you're going to want to punch a hole through the top or the bottom, whatever's easiest. For me, it was the top. And then I'm going to come in from the bottom. So I'll bring my scissors up into the bottom, as you can see here, and then this way I can just manipulate the paper and cut around each of those snowflakes, and easy peasy, you have that cut out. My card base is going to be some of the purple cardstock that came from the kit that I had cut down to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches and scored at 4.25. And then I'm going to take some of my score tape. This is just some 1/8 inch score tape, and I'll peel off all that backing paper, and then I'm going to adhere down some acetate to the back of that pattern paper that I had cut and stamped. I'm going to put this all back into my Misti, and I'm going to line up my sentiment, which is the Warm Winter Wishes. And this is the easiest way to line up your sentiments. And then I'll peel that off, and then I'll make sure that I have my card base in there good and secure. Ink that up with my VersaMark ink once again, and then cover that again with my white embossing powder. I did stamp it twice to make sure that I had a good crisp image. And then we'll just go through that same process all over again that we did for the outside. And then we'll heat set that once again till that is smooth and melted. This is a really easy card. And it's nice because after making all the Christmas cards that we're making, that we're all working on right now, this kit is a great kit for just making like quick thank yous or just some winter cards. I just thought this kit was very well thought out, a lot of fun, and great colors for winter as well. Now for my shaker, you could have gone and doubled up your foam tape, but I chose not to. I didn't want my shake to have too much, so I just did 1 layer of the Scotch foam tape, peeled off all the backing paper, and then I'm going to take the sequins that came in the kit, and I'll just dump a few of those on top of where the Winter Wishes is. So we'll just dump a few there. I probably was a little bit too liberal there since this is a 1 layer card as far as the foam tape goes, but it worked out pretty well. I'll put a few more of those into a bead tray because I'm going to embellish the outside as well. I'm going to take my crystal Katana along with the Tombow Mono Multi adhesive, and then I'll just attach each of those sequins to the centers of each of the snowflakes in there. I just thought that would be such a fun little touch. And when I have all those down, that's going to finish off our first card. So we just have this easy little shaker, super fun. You could easily put like thank you in the center there if you wanted or whatever, but this would be a fun card to send out. For card number 2, I grabbed some more of that pattern paper along with some of that silver cardstock that came in the kit with that sparkle and shimmer. And I'm going to take one of the sentiments from the kit and I'm going to ink that up with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink and stamp that down onto some of the white cardstock that came in the kit. I like to use that ink when I'm using sentiments just because it is such a crisp, dark ink. I will take some of that mirror duct tape that came in the kit and I'm going to trim down one of the edges. And then I'm going to adhere that to the front, trying to get it as straight as possible by using my glass mat. It did shift a little bit in transition there, but I was able to fix it because as far as duct tape goes, this isn't like super, sticky. I mean, it tore the paper just a little bit there, but obviously it wasn't an issue to peel that back and stick it back down. But isn't that stuff beautiful? Oh my gosh, I love the shine on it. It's kind of got that purple pink color to it, which is so cool. I trimmed down my sentiment and I did adhere it with some of my liquid glue. I end up not liking this, so I will change it out later. If I hadn't planned to add one of the big snowflakes later on, this would have been just fine. Now I'm going to take some of the twine. I love this twine. The color, for starters, is just like right up my alley. And I like that there's two different colors in there, or two different patterns using the same color. And so I put some score tape on the back. This is kind of this is my go-to to stick down twine when I want to wrap it around. And so I put just a couple pieces on the edges, and now I'm sorry to kind of off screen, but I wrap that around 3 times. And then I just trim it, but having that score tape on the back keeps the edges or the ends where they're supposed to be so that I can keep manipulating that twine and getting it to look how I want it to look. And then I'm kind of testing how that's going to look with my base and just kind of taking a look at it. And this is where I realized I tried to peel it back and I thought, nope, that'll just ruin it. So we are going to go with this. We're just going to go with it. And we'll worry about it here in a second. So I'll grab more of that white cardstock and I'm going to stamp down my sentiment again, just go through that whole same process of inking it up with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, stamp it down, trim it out, cut down the edge, and then it's going to basically go right over the top of where it was. But before I do that, I'm going to adhere my panel down to my card base just using some of my liquid glue. Got a little heavy-handed on one end, and you'll see, or one side, it does seep out the edge, and I don't even notice it for now. I notice it later on, but it's not a big deal right now. I'll peel off the sticker paper on one of those snowflakes. I am in love with those snowflakes. I think those are so fun. What an easy way to add an embellishment. And then I'm kind of just testing to see how that'll look. So I'll grab foam tape, and I'll put that over the top of the sentiment underneath, peel that back, put a little bit of glue on the snowflake where it's going to overlap, because that was the problem. Sometimes you have these ideas in your head. It doesn't always pan out when you get going, and this is one of those. But this ends up working out just fine. Now I'm going to adhere down some of the little gems that came in the kit. I love these. They're so pretty. And if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't use this glue. So I used this Multimedia matte glue, which is a matte finish when it dries. Obviously, that's why it's called Multimedia matte. I would have used probably a glossy because that matte, once it dries, it really kind of dulls down those rhinestones, which is a shame because those rhinestones are so pretty. But I just wasn't thinking, and my glue was right there, and I was just going with it. But once we're done with that, that's going to finish off card number 2. Love how that one turned out. So fun and easy to make. For card number 3, I have some of that glitter cardstock, and you can tell I already cut the center out of it. I know that's kind of crazy, but I just I can't stick a whole piece of that behind something, knowing that I could have salvaged some of it. So I do cut out the centers usually when I want to border or use the glitter cardstock as a border. So that's why that's missing the inside. I am trimming down some pieces to go along with my Winter Wishes die, or Warm Wishes die. And I really tried. I wanted to be able to stick it through my Xyron sticker maker, but this die is just a little too big for that. I have the smaller Xyron sticker maker, but if you have a bigger one, that would definitely be the way to do this. It'll definitely save you some time. But this works out fine too. I like how big these sentiments are, and I like how the eye isn't separate. I mean, there's only 2 separate pieces and they're still fairly decent size. So what I did is I just took my Tombow Mono Multi, which was perfect for this because it does dry matte, and I put that behind all the lettering using my reverse tweezers to hold them all in place, and I did stack it up 3 times. I end up adding a 4th layer, you'll see here in a little bit, but I had started off with that light purple cardstock, and then I was going to use the dark purple cardstock as my card base, but I decided against it once I got everything put together. To adhere that pattern paper to the glitter cardstock, The easiest way is with a strong adhesive, and in this case I'm using SCOR tape. Liquid glue would work okay, but it takes a bit to dry and you need to set it off to the side with like a block on top of it because it'll shift. That glitter doesn't want to grip too well right away. And it's at this point that I'm looking at the warm wishes thinking it's too light. So I run it through with the darker purple cardstock and decide to, basically adhere it all the same way I did before, just using my reverse tweezers and that Tombow Mono Multi, and there you'll see the darker purple definitely works better. I kept one of the negatives because I wanted everything to line up perfectly, and I knew it would. I was just kind of testing the waters here. And so then I will pull out the die or the die cut, and then I will use the negative as a template to see where I want to stick it. And then once again, I'll use my reverse tweezers and that same Tombow Mono Multi liquid glue, put that all over the back, and then I will use the die negative as my placement. And you'll see it works. I'm sticking that in there, and then I'm going through with my last piece and sticking that in there as well. You will want to remove the negative before everything dries, because if by chance some of that glue that you used seeped out, it will adhere obviously to the cardstock, the negative piece of cardstock, and then good luck getting it out. I mean, you'll be able to, but you'll have tears, and you don't want that. So my suggestion is, if you're going to do it this way, that you just peel that out right away. All right. And then at this point, I decide to stamp out the snowflakes. I just wanted 3 of them. I tried doing it with VersaMark ink and some silver embossing powder, and I just didn't like the way that looked. So I used a dark purple ink and then did the same thing. So I stamped those, and then I fussy cut each of those snowflakes out. And then I'm going to adhere those using my crystal katana and that same glue that I've been using. And that's why I love this crystal katana. It'll pick up just about anything. And it even would pick up this bigger snowflake, but I landed... I was like, why am I not using my fingers for this? It's not like it's so tiny. I'll pull out some of those rhinestones in the kit as well, because it just needs a little more shine, right? And then I'll use my crystal katana again and adhere some of those down. And I was pretty liberal. Not only did I adhere them to the center of the snowflakes, but I put them around the snowflakes as well. It's just, you do get a lot of those rhinestones, and who doesn't love a lot of shine and shimmer? So there I was putting a bunch more down. I decided that wasn't enough, so after I adhere the card panel to the card base, which is just some of the white cardstock that came in the kit, I will grab out my white Blizzard Nuvo drops, because these have some glitter in them, and I'm going to go over my entire sentiment with that. Now right now it's just going to look like a cloudy mess almost, but once it dries it is beautiful, and you'll see that in the pictures afterwards. So I will cover that entire sentiment, and then that's how it's going to look once it's still wet here, but then you're going to see that it'll be completely dry, and I love the way that looks. Project number 4 is not a card, it's a tag, and this is the tag I used. It's actually from Tailored Expressions. Any tag would work though, and I cut it out 3 times. I used 2 pieces of patterned paper, and I also used 1 of the purple cardstock. And I'm going to use that purple cardstock once again. It's getting down to be a scrap here, but I'm going to stamp my sentiment just using some of that same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I'll stamp that down at the bottom, and then I'm going to grab out my Tonic Studios or Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer. This is pretty new to me and I love it. Wish I hadn't waited so long to get one. And then I'm just going to trim down my sentiment just using that guillotine trimmer. And then I'll trim it down even a little bit more on both ends. And I actually want to split that sentiment in half. So where it says your kindness, I'm going to cut in between there and warms my heart, so that it's like 2 lines of that sentiment. I'm going to take one of the patterned paper tags that I cut out, and then I'm going to trim that down too. That's going to be the top of my tag. And then I'm going to start adhering all of the pieces together. So I'll use some SCOR tape, because I do plan to use some of the twine as well. And I probably went a little heavy-handed with all the SCOR tape, but I wanted to make sure this was a sturdy tag. And the nice thing about tags is that you can make the tags, and if you decide later on you want to add it to the front of a card, you sure can. So you don't have to just use them as tags. You can put them on the front of cards and make it into an A2 size card, or well, any size card really. So I'll peel off the sides the score tape on the sides, and then once again I'm going to wrap that twine around about 3 times and adhere that to that score tape that's on the back, and then trim that down, and then I will manipulate the front just a little bit after I peel off the rest of the backing paper for that score tape, and I'm just going to end up adhering that down to the purple tag. And I did use a little bit of the liquid glue on the top part of the tag just where I couldn't get the score tape to go. So, or I could have, but it would have just taken a little more time. And then I'm just going to use that same liquid glue on the top part of the tag. So now we have a very sturdy, nice little tag here. But the purple on the back will make it great if I do want to write on it. Then I've got a plain back so that I can do so. I'm using some foam tape on the back of my sentiment and just little strips of it, and then kind of look at how I want that to be on there, and then I'll peel off my backing paper after I manipulate my twine just a little bit more, peel off my backing paper, stick down my sentiment, and I'm kind of really enjoying how that's turned out. Your kindness warms my heart. So you could add this, like I said, to the front of a card and make it, you know, a thank you. All right, I'm going to slow this way down. Some of it is in screen and some of it's not. I do apologize that some of it's not. I have a giant piece of the twine that I'm going to stick through the back of my tag. So I'm going to explain this because it isn't all in screen. I do apologize. And then I will stick that right through the center once again. And so then it'll be tied to the top of my tag, which you will see. And I'm trying to think here, that's why it's taking me a while, how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to cut some more of that twine because I want to adhere that button. I don't want to just stick it down with glue. I want to actually adhere it using some of the twine. It'll make it stay on even more. So if it gets bumped funny, it won't come off. So I'm going to do the same thing with this smaller piece of twine. I'll stick that through the same way I did that first one and loop it back in, and then you'll have 2 of those pieces of twine tied on the top. All right, and then I'm just, unfortunately you can't see, I'm manipulating that twine just a little bit so that it is more towards the bottom, and I'm going to stick that through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of those ends. This is the bigger twine that I had originally cut, and I'm going to stick that through the center of the buttonholes, each side. And then once I get that through, I'll put that all the way down to the tag, and then I'll tie my bow. So by doing it this way, I'm ensuring that button really probably isn't going to go anywhere unless somebody decides to untie the bow. But you could always tie that in a double knot, and then you have less likely of a chance of it coming off. But I like the way that this one worked. I like the idea of it just being tied right on there. It's a little less messy. You don't have to wait for things to dry, which is always nice. And then it's just, you have this cute little button, looks like it's tied right on because it is. And then I'll trim down those ends. And then I'm going to tie a knot at the top just by looping it, basically. Sorry, this is off screen as well. So I'll just loop that, and now we have another hole, or another knot in the top. And as a final bit of embellishment, I'll take some of those sequins that came in the kit and I'll adhere those down using my crystal katana and the Multimedia mat. But I want to make sure that those stay put as well. And the glue will keep them there, but if it's only glue on one side, it, you know, has more of a chance of getting bumped off. So I'm actually going to take that, my white Blizzard Nuvo drops, and put those in the center as well, because they go with it and they'll be pretty, and then it'll double adhere. All right, and that's going to finish off our tag. So I really love the way this turned out. I think I want to start making more tags because, like I said, you can always attach them to a card if you want to. My final project today is actually a really fast card using those foam snowflakes, and making this card made me fall in love with that, and I figure you could make a bunch of cards using these. It was so easy. So I used a little rectangle die that I had. It was a little stitched rectangle die, and I cut that out of the white cardstock, and then I stamped my sentiment using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And I had also trimmed down one of the pieces of patterned paper using one of the rectangles as well. And I'm going to just pull out some of those snowflakes. Like I said, there are actually 3 different kinds of snowflakes in here. And I'm going to grab the white and the silver. And I grabbed this particular one because I really liked how it had that little centerpiece that was in there and you could swap them out. I thought that was fun, and it made them kind of go, interact together. And so I ended up doing that with all of the white and the silver of this particular type of snowflake. And I arranged them on my panel, just kind of seeing where they would fit, knowing full well that you can trim some off later. I used some foam tape on the back of my sentiment and stuck it down kind of wonky. And then I'm going to peel off the release paper on the back of one of the snowflakes, and I'll stick it down. Not caring that it's going to come off the edge. I'm actually going to cut that down, and I'm going to save those little pieces because those little pieces will come in handy to fill in gaps later on. And it just, I do enjoy putting things off the edge of the page because it gives this illusion of continuation outside of just the panel itself, which is really kind of cool. So I'll do the same thing with this silver one. And peel off all that backing paper, stick it down. And now some of those little pieces really aren't that salvageable, so I will end up throwing those out. Otherwise it'd just be too much of a pain to try and keep an eye on all of those. But the bigger pieces I definitely saved. And so here's a spot where I thought it definitely needs some white, and so I'm using one of the other snowflakes as a guide on where I would put my pieces. And then I'm just sticking down those pieces that would go there. And then I'll grab another snowflake and do the same thing. But I like this style of card, especially using these little snowflakes, because you could crank out these cards in no time. And, once you get the pattern down, it's no big deal. So I'll stick down another white one, trimming off that excess here in a second, but I grabbed some of that silver. And then I do the same thing with this one. I end up just basically cutting it in half and saving that other piece for something else. Peel off the backing paper and I stick this piece down. And then stick the little center in. And then I even grab another little white piece and stick it down and then trim that off. But that's it for that panel. That is so easy. And I'll just put away all those extra snowflakes because I have so many left over. I'm going to grab some of the pink cardstock that came in the kit, and I'd cut that down to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches and scored it at 4.25, so this will be a side folding A2 size card. I will use some of that liquid glue on the back of my card panel, and I'll adhere that to the front of the card base. And then that is it. Okay, so that's going to finish off this card. I'm going to have a link down below to the subscription page where you can, snag one of these kits if you want to, and also where you can find the frequently asked questions and things like that. But let's take a look at the cards that I made today using this kit. I would love to know if you had a favorite. If you did, which one was it? That's always my absolute favorite part of making all these cards, is just hearing which ones you guys liked. If you did like any, I would love it if you subscribed if you haven't already done so. And if you liked this video, please hit the like button. I always have lots going on, even throughout this entire month. I've got plenty scheduled. And so yeah, I appreciate you guys stopping by and leaving some love. And as always, guys, thank you so much for stopping by.